It's Monday, the 3rd of February 2025. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes, and story number 1 is an absolutely massive one. Donald Trump has levied large tariffs on imports from Canada, from Mexico, and from China, triggering a trade war that is likely to push prices higher globally.
25% on Mexico, 25% on Canada, except for oil and energy products, 10% on China. That's products being sold into the US. Donald Trump said he used emergency powers to issue the tariffs because of the major threat of illegal aliens and deadly drugs killing our citizens, including fentanyl. That's a quote. He was pretty much condemned immediately by industry groups and economists. He has threatened he will levy tariffs on the EU. How does it work? Basically, an example is the best way to go. Mexico might import a car into the US for $10,000. As from tomorrow, it will cost $12,500. That makes US car makers in Michigan more competitive, but they might make a car for $12,400, $100 better. Sounds good. Who pays that extra though? That $2,400, $2,500? Consumers. That's why it's inflationary. Good social policy? Maybe. Awful economic policy.
What does it mean for Australia then, Sean? What's the flow-on effect?
Well, Canada and Mexico have come out and said they're going to put tariffs on US products. There's a trade war going on. That's not good. It slows global growth. Australia sells a lot of stuff to other countries. If global growth slows, that hits us. It'll hit the Australian dollar. It'll hit bond markets. It'll hit equity markets. We'll see that today. Biggest fear, I think, is what happens to interest rates for many of us. This is a reason for the Reserve Bank to give pause doing anything next month when it meets.
Okay, moving on to story number 2, which is very much linked to story number 1. How do you think the local market is going to react today?
Some of Australia's biggest companies could well be hit by the tariffs. For example, Rio Tinto mines aluminium in Canada, sells into the US. BHP mines potash in Canada. Northern Star, the gold miner, mines lots of stuff in Canada. They sell into the US. It'll just be interesting to see how their share prices performed this morning. Then they've got Australian companies in the US, Aristocrat Leisure, for example, James Hardie, they manufacture stuff there. Will they be hit? Bit unclear about all that. Funny thing is that the share market hit a new high last week, though futures trading suggests it's going to fall by about 1% when we open today. Certainly, it leaves investors, the tariffs decision leaves investors very, very nervous.
Indeed. All right, moving on to story number 3 now, Sean, and the Australian home auction market has stalled with no growth in January across the country, and Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra all actually going backwards.
Even the boom cities of Adelaide, Perth and Brisbane are taking a breather, albeit they're still rising. The regions are having a good time of it. Internal migration and healthier affordability has pushed up the average price across regions by 0.4% last month. CoreLogic's home value index is now down 0.3% since the peak in October. I suppose the good news is that rates are supposed to be coming. That tends to support house prices. What's kind of interesting now is, Sydney's the most expensive city, but beyond that, the next most expensive in terms of medium house prices is Brisbane at $900K. Then Adelaide, Perth and Melbourne. Those cities have caught up to Melbourne at about $800K. Hobart's cheaper at $650K.
Okay, story number 4. Microsoft has warned that deepfake audio content could be used to mislead voters and potentially disrupt the federal election later this year.
Manipulated audio content and deepfake videos designed to sound like a political candidate's real voice could spread quickly on social media. Microsoft's Democracy Forward initiative boss, Jenny Badanes, she's visiting Australia. She said China, Russia and Iran are among the leaders in electoral interference, often hacking accounts and spreading content to mislead voters, according to a report in the Fin Review. Auto deepfakes are the most effective, she said, and among the hardest to detect. In a threat assessment published last month, the Australian Electoral Commission said while attempts to interfere in Australia's democratic processes were common, successful interference was not. What Microsoft is now saying is it's going to be much harder to ensure that interference doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's a bit of a worry. Story number 5, last one. The EU, Sean, plans to make e-commerce platforms like Temu and Shein and Amazon Marketplace liable for dangerous or illegal products sold online.
It's part of a crackdown on the flood of imports from China. According to the Financial Times, customs reforms would oblige online platforms to provide data before goods arrive in the EU. Just means better control. Currently, any individual in the EU who purchases goods online is treated as the importer for customs purposes. The reforms, if adopted, switch the responsibility to the platforms. Major change there. It comes amid concerns about the rise in dangerous and counterfeit goods shipped from Asia directly to European customers.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Monday, the 3rd of February, 2025. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.